guys, I feel like it's been forever since I've done a discussion video, and it's because I have. If it's been a while. If anyone hasn't noticed, for some reason, when I get into something, I get into it. Like, that's the only thing I'm clearing my life schedule for to do whatever I'm into that. So from time to time, you'll be able to tell that I'm in a highly musical mood, as music stuff will be the content coming out for a few days or a week. Same with if I start a new challenge run in the games that I challenge run. Don't be surprised if for a few days to a week, that's most of the content coming out. But it's always going to be horror, and that's why the streams every week are anchor it to that. But it's been a while. It's been a week, I think, since Psycho 3. So, American Werewolf in London by John Landis. Now, when it comes to John Landis as a director, he's made some amazing comedies. I mean, this goddamn notification sound, I forget to shut it off. So now you're going to think if maybe it was my phone. My phone went off. Now you're looking right now? If not, it didn't work. But Animal House, Trading Places, The Blues Brothers, Beverly 3 or 2? Beverly Hills Cop. Pretty sure it was 3 that he directed. But he's done a shit ton of amazing comedies. When it comes to horror, and this movie isn't a straight horror movie. There's definitely comedy throughout this. So, I mean, you have John Landis's signature comedy throughout this, too. But this is pretty much the only John Landis film that I love. Like, horror-wise. I don't even know another horror movie John Landis did. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, really haven't. Like, I can't think of one. And this movie's a masterpiece. Like, I'm sure anyone who's seen this movie knows how much of a masterpiece it is. We have Kessler here, David Kessler, and his friend, which I always forget the character's name, Jack? I think it's Jack. Who's played by Griffin Dunne, who, if you guys know, After Hours, I talk about it all the time. It's my favorite comedy of all time. He stars in it, so just seeing him on screen is fantastic, and he does a phenomenal job in this as Jack. Same with the guy, I forget his name, who plays Kessler. Great performance. Now we have, obviously, the practical effects in this movie by Rick Baker, which are second to none. I mean, especially the transformation scene, we'll talk about it when it gets there, but unbelievable work. Like, rivals Rob Bottin stuff, and Tom Savini, like Stan Winston, like that's the reason Rick Baker became as big as he did. But I'll save this for that transformation scene when we talk about that. So let's talk American Werewolf in London, and then I'll hop on a plane and head over to Paris, and then we'll rewatch and talk about that one. So for some reason, if somebody hasn't seen this movie, here's a short synopsis. It's on Tubi right now, which is rare. I don't see it on Tubi often. They just put it on there recently. But basically, we have two friends, David Kessler and Jack, and they're backpacking across Europe. And they're a little like outside of London. And they run into this bar, the Slaughtered Lamb. And they see that things kind of are weird there. There's a pentagram, which is something I got to talk about with that. And they end up leaving, and one of them gets killed by a werewolf, the friend, Jack. And the other one is bitten, and he slowly starts to transform into a werewolf. This is one of the best werewolf films ever made. I mean, that I think we can all agree on. Like the original Wolfman from Universal Studios, this movie, The Howling, Bad Moon is great, which, great score in this movie too. Great score and soundtrack, opening up with Blue Moon. Amazing choice. Like, there's some great choices of songs in here, and the score when they're walking to the Slaughtered Lamb, and that piano score with the strings. It's beautiful stuff, and I always forget how good that the score is in this movie. But every time I rewatch it, yeah, it's fantastic. So they get to the Slaughtered Lamb, this pub that all these people are in. And just the banter in this movie is fantastic, too, when they're walking to the Slaughtered Lamb. And they're talking about that girl that Jack's been wanting to fuck forever. And like just their banter back and forth. Like you really believe these two people are friends. And they walk into the slaughtered lamb and then everyone just stops talking and looks at them. And that's got to be so eerie in its own right. Then they look over and they see the 5-pointed star on the wall. Now, Jack refers to it as a pentangle. Now, I'm not a witch or anything like. Actually, Nan. Nanette, if you see this, maybe you'll know the answer. I've always heard of it as a pentagram. Like, pentagram is the 5-pointed star, right? I've never heard of pentangle. That makes it sound like a rectangle, like with 5 points. So that don't work out, right? Geometry-wise. So if anyone knows that they used to call it a pentangle, let me know. Because I've never heard that. Pentagram is what I've always heard. And nice little reference to the Wolfman, Universal Studios, with him saying that's the sign of the wolf and everything when he shows it in the 5-pointed star. Great movie, too, that I haven't seen in forever. The Universal monster movies. They might come down the line, like down the line. All right, the joke that this English guy tells, great. And that's something I usually don't like in movies. When some character, especially like an ancillary character that has nothing to do with anything really, starts breaking out and telling a joke. Kind of don't care for that, but this joke is great. I'm not even going to attempt to tell it. If you haven't seen it, go watch the movie. But all I'll say is remember the Alamo. And this is what I mean with John Landis's comedic stuff making its way into this movie. When they first sit down and they said, "You have any hot soup?" And the woman goes, "No." You're like, "You got any coffee then?" She's like, "No." She's like, "We got spirits and beer. And like, if you want something hot, you can have tea." And he's like, "Oh, so you got tea?" And she's like, "No." But I can make it for you. Like, all of that, like, you see that throughout this whole movie. And it works amazingly. And then Jack asks, after really, really trying to get David to ask. He don't want to ask these people. So while they're laughing, he figures like, oh, this is a good time. They're in a good mood. Let me ask him about the candles and the pentangle on the pentangle on the wall. And I love how there's a little shot of a dart hitting the dartboard, and then it's just silence. And everybody is completely quiet and just staring at them. And then they just get weirded out, get up and leave. And they tell them, they warn them, they really do. I mean, they could have warned them so much better than this. Here you go. Here's an example. All right, guys, you might want to stay in here and stuff. And if anything you leave, stick to the road because there's a giant-ass werewolf creature that roams around the outside of London here. And we've had attacks in the past, so you probably want to be careful. Boom. Done. No movie. Instead, they end up leaving and they just tell them just stick to the road and beware the full moon. I mean, if you were in this situation, full moon, immediately you're going to think there's a werewolf around here, right? Like, I don't know. Yeah, and even Jack says, beware the moon. Because what other situation are you going to be in danger from a full moon? Unless, like, you're swimming in the ocean and the tides get all fucked up, right? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Why else would anyone tell you beware the full moon? And of course, as fantastical it is in real life to imagine there being an actual werewolf, but still, they could have helped these people a lot more. Every time Jack says pentangle, it really bothers me. I really need an answer to this. I think it's probably the most important question during this discussion. So someone let me know about the pentagram versus pentangle debate. Oh, there's just so much charm to this goddamn movie, man. Like when they're in the rain and they're walking away from the slaughtered lamb, and they both start singing Santa Lucia. Like, just to insert in just to insert that in there is brilliant to me. Like, just small little pieces of charm that are thrown into this movie and make it so much better than it would be without it. And then we hear the howling. Different movie. But we hear the howling or the werewolf here. The howling sounds great. Like, all the sound design in this movie for the werewolf, the creature and everything, very well done. And then right here, after they leave, they say, it's in God's hands and we should have told him. And then the guy's like, what do you think they'd say? They think us mad. Again, it doesn't hurt to try, right? And then, after more great banter, and they mention the Moors, which every time I hear the Moors, man, as a Seinfeld fanatic my whole life, I immediately think of George with the Bubble Boy playing Trivial Pursuit. And the card says the Moors, and the bubble boy guesses it right, and it's a typo on the card. It says Moops, and George turns around. He's like, "Oh no, I'm afraid you're wrong. This card says Moops." He's like, "That's a typo." He's like, "There is no Moops." He's like, "Well, the card says Moops." Great sidetrack here. But they see the moon, and they say, "Oh, beware the moon, and don't leave the trail." They look down, and they're like, "Oh shit." We shouldn't have done that. Then the howling and just the tension that gets built up here, and that it's moving around them, and they're just slowly looking around, and they are frightened to death. And they're still trying to think, like, all right, what's the plan? All right, let's keep walking. All right, you know what? After hearing another howl, another thought, let's go back to the slaughtered lamb. They start going that way. Then the werewolf comes out and just mutilates Jack. And the effects look fantastic on his fucking body afterwards. All of his ghostly appearances throughout this movie, and he gets more and more decomposed. Oh, the effects are fantastic. I mean, I know the transformation scene is like the big go-to for this movie, effects-wise. But there's some great stuff in here, like when he's having the dream and he gets his throat slit. Like, a lot of great practical effects in here. It's not just the transformation scene. I like how they handle this too. When Jack's getting, like, David pretends to fall and fuck with him. And like, what type of friend's fucking with you in a situation like this? You're scared out of your mind. He falls, help me up. Then just the werewolf comes out of nowhere and starts ripping him apart. And we get like a Friday Part 4 line that didn't come yet. With him say, he's killing me, which I love from Friday 4. People don't like that for some reason. I think that adds a lot to a death, especially here too. Him screaming, he's killing me, and he's dead. He's gone. And the way that they show David handling the situation is pretty realistic. He books it. As soon as Jack starts getting mauled by this thing that he doesn't know what the hell it is at first, he's running away. Then after like a few seconds, he stops and says, "Jack," and like computes what's going on in his head. And he turns around to go back, and Jack is dead. But that's a realistic response. Like, you would say, like, come on, it's your friend. Like, get in there, start beating that werewolf senseless. But what would you do in that situation? If a werewolf just jumped on your friend and started eating him alive? Come on, your first survival instinct is you're gonna run away. Even if it is just for a few seconds, and that's what he does here. So I think that's a great way of handling it. And then, of course, the friggin' slaughtered lamb people show up way too late. Jack's dead already, but they save David after he has been bitten. So, or scratched. He was scratched on the chest, right? So, a little too late for them. And they created another werewolf. Even though they killed this one, created another one. So, they're not doing good here in London, keeping their werewolf population under control. Oh, yeah. It's been a while since we did a Tubi movie, so Tubi wants me to let you guys know Monjaro might be the drug for you if you have onset diabetes. For people who are new to the channel, anytime we do a Tubi movie that's on there, I gotta plug the commercials too, because I gotta fucking sit through them, so will you. What type of name for a drug is Monjaro? It sounds like you're climbing a fucking mountain. Like Mount Kilimanjaro? It's exactly what it sounds like to me. So David wakes up in a hospital in London. He has no memory, really, of what happened, except that they're calling it the police, saying that it was a maniac, some crazed maniac that killed Jack and fucked him up a bit. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how that works. He has big-ass scratches on him that wouldn't they be able to tell that that's not a human being, like that an animal? None of this makes sense, really, but it doesn't have to. So he gets told that it's been 3 weeks that he's been unconscious, basically, since he got brought into the hospital, and that Jack is dead. So he starts freaking out, and this one he says, like, it was a wolf, like, it was some type of animal. And the doctor doesn't believe him. No one wants to believe him. I mean, I get what he's saying. He just went through this trauma, and I'm pretty sure he says this too, when he's trying to rationalize with the doctor and tell him, like, I'm telling you this is what I saw, like, I know I just went through a trauma, but, like, I saw him rip my friend apart. But no one wants to listen to this. The whole romance between Alex and David is so well done in this movie. What a cute girl the nurse Alex is, and the way she takes care of him, and when she starts feeding him later because he doesn't want to eat because he's sneaking out and ripping apart bunny rabbits, deer, whatever the hell he's eating, then he's not hungry for regular food. And then that cute scene, man, I love that scene when she's like, all right, I gotta do this the hard way. She starts cutting food up and starts feeding it to him. And great stuff with the whole romance between them. They have a great dynamic together. I like how the little kid, the Indian kid in the hospital, he's reading a Laurel and Hardy comic book. That's a cool little reference started. And I also like how in this, and we see this in a lot of werewolf movies from here on, with a slow transformation. Now, with him, it is the moon, if I recall correctly, right? It's just that it just was a full moon. Now it's in 3 weeks that he's in there, so you got another full moon coming. So he still transforms at a full moon. Like in Ginger Snaps, for example, I like how they handle it in that it's a very slow transformation. The moon has nothing to do with anything. But, I mean, besides the Wolfman, the original, like, this movie kept that going for a long time. It's pretty sure it's the same in The Howling, isn't it? With the full moon? I haven't seen The Howling in forever. We'll talk The Howling a little bit. So I think it's a cool inclusion also that he starts having bad dreams. Like very vivid, very disturbing dreams. And these are another symptoms. This is another symptom of, I guess, becoming a werewolf or turning into one is bad, horrific, vivid dreams. And they're cool dream sequences. You got like the makeup effects on people to make them look like wolfmen. And they're shooting for some reason like automatic weapons throughout a house. I don't know. None of that makes sense. But then he gets his throat slit by one of the other guys. Like, that's a cool little sequence. Besides the whole machine gun stuff. I don't know what the fuck they were doing there. And then we get the dreaded double dream fake out. Which I hate that. In the majority of movies, I don't care for it here either. He wakes up and Alex is in the room and said, I just had a bad nightmare. She's like, I got just the thing. She pulls over the curtain and he's still dreaming and one of those wolfman looking things comes out and starts brutally stabbing her to death. Then he wakes up, he's like, Jesus Christ, or something like that. It's funny, but still, it's a dream within a dream and I don't like them, like 90% of the time. It sucks that Griffin Dunne is not in this movie as much. Like, it would have been a lot better for me if he was the main character, just because I love Griffin Dunne so much. But he just appeared as his ghost form, and I love, again, with the humor here, how David says, like, you ever think it would occur to me that I'd be afraid of seeing you arise from the grave to come visit me? And like I said, the makeup effects on this guy look absolutely fantastic. Just with the maulings and blood and everything down his neck, and his whole neck is ripped apart. It looks absolutely fantastic. And he just keeps on decaying the more and more that David sees him throughout this movie. Oh, I can't tell you enough about the effects in this movie. And then Jack lays the news on this man. It's for the best friend. Starts saying he's in limbo because he suffered an unnatural death and that they were attacked by a lycanthrope, by a werewolf. And I guess he gets a guidebook when he reaches heaven or wherever in limbo he is that tells him all the rules here. Otherwise, I don't know how he knows any of this. But he starts telling him that he's lonely and that, like, take your life. He's telling him to kill himself. He's saying that the werewolf curse will only be lifted when the last werewolf of that bloodline is destroyed, which is David. So he's telling him, fucking kill yourself. So this guy can get out of limbo. But again, how does he know any of this? It doesn't matter. I'm also pretty sure that Alex comes in and he starts saying that my friend Jack was just here and I'm going to become a monster in 2 days, a werewolf. What do you think? I'm pretty sure that she says that they're going to discharge him tomorrow. I'm pretty sure they ain't discharging a regular person in this situation. Are you serious? They're about to let this guy go and he's talking that he's seeing his dead friend, apparition-wise, like in his room, and that he's going to turn into a werewolf in 2 days. And they're going to just sign his papers and let him out. This is so stupid. But since David has nowhere to stay in London, since he doesn't fucking know anybody there, I know some people around there. If I ever get bit by a werewolf, Gareth, Mike, Dave, you guys better bring me in if I'm in the hospital over there. So he gets brought over to her place, and she's going to let him stay there, which obviously, like I said, the romance between them is handled so well here. And, I mean, she really likes David. I mean, just to say, you got a place to stay? Here, come stay at my house. I just met you a few weeks ago. But great stuff between them. Then we get a nice little montage with some more music. I forget which one this is. Something with Moon in it also. I mean, it could be a little overbearing with all the Moon references in the music, but it's fine. It works. And they're fucking like bunny werewolves. So he's happy until he has to turn into a werewolf soon. I've always loved this line from Jack when he goes after they fuck like werewolves and he goes into the bathroom. And again, man, there's a four scratches, big ass scratches on him, and they thought some guy did it again, whatever. But Jack shows up, and again, fantastic. Now he's green and stuff, like he's decaying, and he has this great line where he's when he tells Jack, he's like, "You're not real." He's like, "Don't be a putz, David." For some reason, I love the way he delivers that. And him saying, "I wanted to see you," and he picked up the little Mickey Mouse statue. "Hi, David." Great stuff. You could. This is what, 4 years? Yeah, 85 was After Hours. This is 81. You could tell this guy, Griffin Dunne, has amazing comedic timing. And it's just on full force in After Hours. I've said it. If you haven't seen it, please go watch that movie because you will not be disappointed. Now, this brings up an interesting thought. It's sad that this is probably the way a lot of mentally ill people kill themselves. Is that they see things, apparitions, they see hallucinations, and hear hallucinations, hear voices. And just like here, with him telling them you got to kill yourself. You have to kill yourself before it's too late, before you turn tomorrow into a werewolf. Now, this is real in the context of the movie. But if you have somebody who's mentally ill, who has visual, audio hallucinations like that, I'm sure this happens all the time. That they hear voices saying, like, kill yourself, and that's, we know it's true, but, like, whatever the reason is that the voices say, you could transfer it and make it this. Like, you're going to turn into a werewolf, so you got to kill yourself. And then the poor fucking guy kills himself because he thought it was real. I don't know, just a sidetrack thought that I had, that it's sad that you can look at it like that. That if this, in this movie, of course, we know he turns into an actual werewolf, but if this was just all in his head and he was mentally ill and sick, imagine if he actually killed himself just because he was thinking he was talking to his dead friend. That's fucked up, man. I'll tell you one thing, the guy who told the joke at the slaughtered lamb at the beginning of the movie, this guy should rival Bobby Fischer, because all he does is play chess. It seems like he never leaves the slaughtered lamb, and he just plays chess there all day, every day long. Oops, spoke too soon, unless he's trying to scare off somebody by saying, "No, that's enough, don't tell them about our werewolf secret." That's the only time he doesn't play chess. Besides that, he's at the chessboard. I love how he's practicing in the mirror for, like, what he's gonna turn. He's, like, trying to be a monster, and he's like, grrr. Just, that's what I mean. Like, this is a fucking horror comedy, man. This isn't a straight horror film. Like, I've never seen this movie as a straight horror movie. It's a horror comedy. Yeah, I'd argue with pretty much equal amounts comedy and horror, because there's a lot of stuff going on here that's funny as shit. All right, so Creedence Clearwater Revival with Bad Moon Rising, excellent choice for this movie. Like I said, well, it could be a little overbearing with the moon stuff. Like, take out that moon song. I forget what it is. I know the song. When they're fucking, like, bunny werewolves. And take that out. And then you have a nice gap between Blue Moon at the very beginning and Bad Moon Rising here. I feel like they went a little overboard with the moon shit, but it is what it is. It's not a big complaint or anything. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. I love right before he transforms, the music playing and everything, that he's pacing back and forth multiple times, and just shows how lost this guy is and how terrified he is. That he doesn't know what to do. He's trying to make fun of the situation by, gesturing in the mirror and trying to be a monster. He's trying to just make sense of all this, and then the transformation begins, and this is just fucking amazing. Alright, so let's talk this transformation scene. This is one of the greatest showcases of practical effects in a movie, for me. Like, this is unbelievable work. When we start seeing his hands grow, and then his feet lengthen, like, how they framed all of this, and how they shot all of this, how you see the hair growing at rapid speed coming out of his body, pretty damn positive it's a reverse shot, but so many techniques went into making this scene. And I know that they wanted to make it brightly lit so that you could see all the agonizing pain that he's going through. And just the shot of his eyes, the yellow eyes, and his ears come up, and his mouth is extending, and absolutely genius work. But I think the Howling transformation's better. I always have. I think this is a better display of practical effects work, and genius work at that. But in The Howling, the way Rob Bottin does the effects and the way it's shot, it's very dark. It's scarier. It's spookier having it in the dark like that. But like I said, I understand why they shot it the way they did here. Both are fantastic, but Rob Bottin's work, and of course, is my favorite movie of all time, gives me a little bit of a bias, but I've always liked The Howling transformation better. We're just getting sounds galore here on this video. Yeah, but I just like The Howling one better. Like, I mean, they're so close, and it's in the same genre of werewolf movies, so they're even closer because of that. But something about the way they film it in The Howling is better for me, but this is just unreal work here. And then this is when we find out from the older dude. I know that's not fucking descriptive. I forget who he is. He's from London, and he's investigating the incident of what happened with the two kids. And he says that he went over to the slaughtered lamb. And one, they're lying. Two, there's no escape mental patient or anything. There's no witnesses. They put Jack in the ground before anybody can look at his body. He was stitched up, David, his claw marks and everything, from a doctor that they then said no doctor ever treated him before he got to the hospital, but yet he was all treated up. So this is a whole secret in the community here that these werewolves are real and are a real thing. And the file even gets misplaced. So this is like a whole conspiracy here outside of London. That there's a bunch of werewolves running around. No one else has seen one? I don't know, man. I'll tell you one thing. Those bums that they show a quick shot of, they're all drinking like by the water with the bridge in the background and the buildings. They're having a better time right now than David is. All right, this scene has great tension with the guy, the businessman in the subway. And then he sees the wolf, and good usage of point of shots and stuff for the werewolf, since I know they couldn't show the werewolf too much in this, and I'm glad that they didn't. Like, same with Jaws. I don't know if he had the same restrictions, like with budget, and that's why they couldn't show the werewolf as much as they wanted, or if it was a conscious decision. If it was, good for them, because we all know why Jaws works so well. You don't see it. Now, the whole thing with this, though, is that they're keeping it a secret, like I said, the community here. I can see the case with Jack and David, being covered up and not making the news of any kind or anything like that. Werewolf mauls a man in the subway of London. Doesn't make the fucking news ever after this? Like, come on, man. This is like the Illuminati. If they're able to keep all this a secret, like an attack in a subway by a werewolf. How are they going to explain this? It was one of the bums? Like, I don't know, man. Absolutely love how he wakes up in a zoo. Brilliant. Might be the most clever thing in the movie. To have him, besides the transformation and shit, to have him wake up after mauling this dude, to wake up in a zoo surrounded by other animals. Great stuff. When he's thinking smart here, though. Because then Alex shows up and he starts saying, I don't know her. Like, I want to get arrested. And good idea. Put him in a cell. And then what happens on the next full moon? Then you definitely debunk werewolves, right? Like, there's no way around it. You throw him in a cell, and then in 3 weeks, he turns into a giant fucking wolf. You gotta kind of give him some credit that his story is credible. Like, after all that. But the things he starts saying. He starts saying Queen Elizabeth is a man, and Prince Charles is a faggot, and like, he's really trying hard. And I guess the police, they're just so nice over there, they really just don't want to arrest you, like, for any reason, unless they really have to. You know what would have been hilarious? Is when he's talking to Alex and saying, like, you got to stay away from me. And then he says, I love you. And she says, what? And he says, like, I did some bad things, I think, last night. You got to stay away from me. Be amazing if he said, I love you to her, and she just said, what? This is just like a few night fuck thing, right? Or something like that. Oh, I would have died laughing. Hey, they must be from Long Island. Where I'm from, David. Because we don't get the 555 fucking fake number like we do in so many movies. It's an actual 516 area code, which is Nassau County. So, I guess they're from Long Island. And of course, when you are a werewolf that just mutilated somebody, and now you're in human form the next day and still seeing your decomposing worsely every time best friend, the first thing to do is go into a peep show with your dead best friend. But then he does find out that he killed a shit ton of people, more than than the guy in the subway. They're all there, like somehow, I guess they're in limbo too, and they get freed when the curse is lifted. But there's like 7 people here, so he went on a murderous rampage like the night before for sure. Big ass werewolf at Peep Show in London. They make the news after any of this. Now for the wolf itself, it doesn't look bad in any way. It just doesn't look great to me. I think the howling, the werewolves in that look a lot better. And I mean, yeah, they're bipedal, they stand up. I don't know. I just rewatching this now and looking at the werewolf, I mean, he's causing carnage everywhere, which is great. But I feel like they could have done better. Maybe it was the effects budget, like with the transformation scene and everything, it took up so much of the budget. And maybe it is a thing. Maybe they didn't have enough to show the werewolf enough, or make him look better than he does here. But like I said, doesn't look like anything bad or anything. Just could have been better, especially with Baker doing all the effects here and all the amazing effects we get in this film. It really is a great story, though. And it's a great love story in here. Like with Alex at the end here, they're like approaching and they got all people, they got the cops with guns and everything ready to kill this werewolf. And she comes up, she's like, let me help you. Like, I love you, David, and all that. And then they shoot him. And he just instantly transforms back into his human body, I guess to help the cause that there's no proof that he was a werewolf ever, except for the people who saw this. I don't know. But amazing movie. American Werewolf in London, John Landis, 1981. So American Werewolf in Paris, I haven't seen in years. But Zodiac, you and I have talked, we both kind of have enjoyment for it, which we're much in the minority for that. I will say that. I know most people hate American Werewolf in Paris, but that'll be fun to rewatch since it's been so long. And yeah, man, amazing movie.